Now, back in 2008, just as the global financial crisis was taking hold, Australian economist Steve Keen famously made a bet that the Australian property market was about to crash. We did see property crashes around the world for sure, and so this wasn't necessarily a hugely surprising prediction, but he did lose that bet. Australian property prices did not crash. Again, this is even as the global economy was grinding to a halt. So over the years, many economists, investors have been watching and looking for the eventual Australian property price crash. It hasn't happened quite yet. Maybe soon, who knows? Maybe let's have a little bit of chat about what drives property prices. And a good place to start would be supply and demand. So when we think about supply, the question is what might push supply up or constrain supply. Obviously, in a region or an area where there's a lack of land, so geography would play a role there, right? So if there's not enough places to put properties, then that would constrain supply. But the other major constraints would just be resources, other than land. So other capital resources. Do you have enough access to timber and bricks and all the things that need to be used to build? Is there any supply bottlenecks that are preventing a good amount of supply from coming on? And then there's human resources. Do you have enough people to build the properties? Yeah. A constraining of supply, that is, if there's not enough, that can lead to prices being elevated, prices pushing up. On the demand side of things, there's a number of issues at play when it comes to what might push up or constrain demand. Probably the biggest one is people, population. The more population there is, more population growth, especially growth in numbers of people that need housing, then yes, demand will go up and can be a support for property prices or push property prices up. And population growth can both be from natural, that is people having babies, and how demographics might change, that is the number of adults versus number of children, for example. So natural population growth can be a driver of demand, but also immigration. The more immigration, the more people that need housing. Yep. In that regards, another driver of property prices in any area would be popularity. Any area, any region that's highly sought after for whatever reason, either domestically or globally, can see their property markets expand. Popularity drivers in this regards might be for lifestyle, so maybe low crime, maybe good infrastructure, maybe good things to do. So natural resources, natural beauty, historical beauty as well. And then you have the business driver, business demand. So business districts and domestically and globally are popular because most people are working and therefore need to be in work centres. Yep. Another demand driver is utility. That is, what is the property being used for? You know, we saw during COVID a lot of people wanting to use their residences or where they lived for work as well. Yeah. So they needed extra space for that home office. Yeah. And so what is the fashionable utility perhaps? So is it fashionable or is it popular to have 2 living spaces, 3 living spaces? Is it popular to have every person have their own bedroom or people to share bedrooms? These kind of things can also change demand characteristics. Yeah. Also, there is the case that some people don't even live in houses. There's high vacancy rates around the world. This might be due to both the appeal of having properties scattered around the globe, perhaps. Some do it for investment reasons, but also a lot of rooms stay vacant because of older owners wanting to retain their family home and therefore having a lot of underutilized space, perhaps. Yeah. Another major driver we've seen, especially over the last 30 years, has been the investment driver, the commodification of residential property. And so investment market drivers start to be at play here as well. One of those drivers is the investment opportunity set that is out there. And so now residential property is competing with other avenues to park your money, park your surplus wealth. Property in this regard as an investment is attractive because out of most investments out there, it's the one that we're probably most familiar with. You know, you can buy shares in a company, yeah, but how familiar are you with that company or that portfolio of companies, yeah? Whereas property, we're pretty comfortable with how it works. You live in it or you rent it. We grow up in property, so we're very familiar with property. In regards to the investment case, perhaps, is also another main driver beyond supply and demand is general economic conditions. If aggregate income is low or dropping, then that can see demand for property drop. If interest rates are dropping, that can see demand go up. Interest rates in particular are important because most property needs to be purchased through debt. And so there's the financing side of property investing as well that's at play. Other factors, other economic factors, wages in particular, yeah, if wages are stagnant, that can be a dampener for the property market, and vice versa. If wages are going up, that can also help. And lastly, another major driver of property prices and of demand and supply for property perhaps as well is just general policy settings, especially government policy settings. How much supply are they providing that is social housing supply? What does that look like? Aged care supply as well is important in this regards, especially perhaps encouraging downsizing to free up some of those vacant rooms, for example. And policy settings beyond the economic, so beyond fiscal policy, beyond monetary policy, interest rate settings. What is government doing in regards to the housing market to influence demand and supply, in particular supply? For example, what does the relationship between government and developers look like? What about infrastructure? How well are they supporting infrastructure that can help support more and more housing? How well are they freeing up land? What does zoning look like? All these kinds of things can either hinder or help supply. Like we've seen around the world, and perhaps particularly in Australia, when supply is constrained, property prices can go through the roof.
Now, eagle-eyed viewers may have spotted some familiar landmarks in this video, so to play the Where is Dr. Dan game, head over to my Substack to be the first to log your location guess. See you next time.